Welcome to day 0 of the 30-day beginner course where I'm going to show you all the fundamentals you need and teach you the most important things that you need in order to skate confidently in 30 days. Before you begin to skate, it's very important to understand what you are dealing with in the first place. So in this video, I'm going to show you the most important things you need to know about inline skates. And we're going to start off with the categories of inline skates that we have. So we have two main categories of inline skates. So there is a hard boot, which is what I'm holding right now, and the soft boot. Unfortunately, I do not have the soft boot right here because I've given it out. But in this video that you see on your screen, I show the soft boot, and also I'll just put maybe some pictures on the screen so you see how the soft boot look like. But the main difference between these two is that with the hard boot, you get a lot more stability and a lot more protection because the outer part of it is quite hard, so it holds your ankles. You get more ankle support in this case. So doing tricks and also moving around on the hard boot is a lot easier than the soft boot. So how you can differentiate between these two is that normally with the hard boot, you can be able to take the liners off. The liners are usually inside like this, and then you can just take them off. So this makes them really nice to maintain. Unlike the soft boot, you cannot really do anything with them. I mean, you cannot take it out, and if you sweat in it, it kind of, stings, and it's hard to maintain in general. But with the hard boots, you can take the liners out, dry them, clean them, do anything you want to do with them. So maintenance is a lot easier on the hard boots. In addition to the ankle support and the easy maintenance it gives you, you can also have a more durable skate. So it can withstand a lot more scratches. You can see on this particular inline skate, I have used this quite much, and you can see a lot of scratches on the skate right now. So it's more durable than the soft skate. On the soft boot, for example, you will see a lot of tears, and the skate can even get destroyed if you fall down or you scratch it a lot more. But the hard boot is more durable. Let us talk about the wheels on the inline skate. So one thing is very obvious over here. You can see that we have different sizes of wheels for your inline skates. The main difference between the bigger wheel and the smaller wheel is that with the smaller wheel, you get a lot more stability, but you sacrifice some speed. And on the bigger wheel, you get less stability, but you have the opportunity to go a lot faster because a bigger wheel means it covers more surface when it rolls. So look at these two wheels. When they roll on one surface, this bigger wheel covers a lot more surface area compared to the smaller wheels. That is why it moves faster than the smaller wheel. In addition to the stability that the smaller wheels give you, they also enable you to make tighter turns or even maneuver a lot easily. So you see that slalom skaters usually have smaller wheels because they have to make tighter turns and you move around the cones and turn around quite a lot. So smaller wheels fit this category a lot better than the bigger wheels. But like I said, this sacrifices a lot more speed. So if you want to maybe cruise around the city or do some downhill skating, then these smaller wheels are not maybe the wheels of choice. Downhill skaters or speed skaters, for example, use bigger wheels like 110 millimeters or 125 millimeters because this allows them to go quite fast. It's also quite stable when you're going really fast, and also stop a lot more confidently when you're on a bigger wheel if you're going quite fast. But on the smaller wheels, it can be quite shaky, and you get this kind of wobbling around. Another important factor to also take note of is that with the bigger wheels, you can ride a lot more comfortably on the road if you're skating outdoors compared to the smaller wheels. Because on the bigger wheels, you don't really feel the vibrations quite a lot because the wheels are big, so they absorb the vibration a lot more than the smaller wheels. Because on the smaller wheels, you feel every vibration, and it can become quite uncomfortable when you use them maybe on really rough surfaces or surfaces that have these cobblestones or old stones and so on. So as a beginner, I recommend that you go for something in between, maybe something around 90 or less, because this will offer you more stability and will help you to improve a lot faster. I started off with a 110 millimeter wheel, and it was quite challenging. It took me a lot longer to learn more techniques than if I should have used maybe the smaller wheel. So when I switched into the smaller wheel, maybe from time to time, because the inline skate that I have basically allows me to switch between them. So it allowed me to try out the smaller wheel, and the experience was way better. I could do a lot of things a lot better and mastered more techniques in a shorter time compared to this bigger wheel. Let us now talk about the wheel hardness or the durometer of the wheel. So this is represented by the A scale. So if you buy your wheels, you can see that on the wheel sometimes they write a certain number, maybe 80, and they put A closer to it. So this is the A scale. And the A scale usually represents the hardness or the softness of the wheel. So you have the hard wheels and the soft wheels. The higher you go on the A scale, the harder the wheel becomes. So if you have 80A wheels, this is way softer than a 100A wheel. The main difference between the harder wheel and the softer wheel is one, the surface on which you can use them. So if you have harder wheels, it is more convenient to use them on outdoor surfaces compared to softer wheels, which is more convenient to use on indoor surfaces, so surfaces that are very smooth. The main reason behind this is that with the harder wheels, if you compress them on the floor, they don't really fold that much, so the grip is not too much. Figure what I mean? So you don't really need this when you're skating on asphalt or road that are a bit rough. You don't really need this. But on the softer wheels, they compress quite much, so they kind of, are a bit more sticky. So if you realize that your skates or you're kind of, moving or rolling around and or trying to do slides, for example, and your wheels are kind of sticky, then these wheels might be a lot softer and are not really convenient to use on the outdoor surfaces, on surfaces like these. This depends entirely on how you want to skate. If you prefer to skate indoors, like maybe in skating rinks or enclosed areas or very smooth surfaces, then it's advisable to go for something a lot softer because this will give you a bit more grip, allow you to stick to the floor a lot more so you don't slip. If you take a harder wheel into these smooth surfaces, you are going to realize that you are just slipping off a lot, and this can become quite dangerous. So take note of the wheel hardness and select the hardness that is appropriate for the type of surface that you want to skate on. One more thing before we leave the wheel category, it's very important to know what is inside the wheel. This is not there by default. This is called a bearing. You see this red thing over here, it is called a bearing. This allows your wheels to rotate. So if you realize that maybe your wheels are not rotating quite effectively or there are some sounds coming from your wheels, then this might be the issue. So like I mentioned, it's not there by default. You can actually remove it and clean it. And if you remove it, this is how it looks like. So this is just one side of it. And then the other side you can also push out if you have tools like this, for example. There are lots of videos on YouTube that can actually help you to remove this and clean them effectively or even replace them. So check out these videos if you feel like there is a need to replace this, but most of the time you don't really need to replace it unless maybe you used it in the rain or something and it gets really, really messy, or maybe you use it in the sand or something, I don't know. Just some conditions and maybe there's something gets into it and you hear some noise, then it's advisable that you clean this and then maybe put it back. But just don't do it too often because this can damage this inside part of your wheel and then maybe it does not really fit properly and you probably have to change your whole wheel. So be careful how you deal with this particular bearing. Now, let us talk about the next most important thing you need to know, which is the frame. This thing over here you see is the frame of your inline skates. And why is this important? Because the type of frame that you choose, the material of the frame that you choose and all can actually affect the type of experience that you get on your skates. The first thing I want to talk about is the height of the frame. The height of the frame determines the maximum size of the wheels that you can use for this particular frame. So with my frames, for example, the maximum wheel size I can use is 110 millimeters. So I can't go above this wheel size because the frames kind of limit me. This is very important. Take note of it and don't just buy any wheels and expect to just, plug into your inline skates and expect everything to be okay. It's not going to be if your frames do not support that wheel size. Also, higher frames increase the center of mass. So it gives you a bit more of height and this makes you a bit more tippy and a little bit more unstable. So usually if you go for lower frames or frames that are not so high, it gives you more stability. The next thing you need to take note of is the length of the frame. So if you go for a shorter frame length, this is going to give you more maneuverability. So it's going to allow you to turn or make sharper turns a lot more easily. So you can see this in slalom skaters again. This gives you a bit more maneuverability. So you can be able to, make sharper turns around cones, spin a lot more easily and all. On the other hand, if you have longer frames, this sacrifices maneuverability and tighter turns, but also gives you more stability. So you have a lot more stable. You can see this with speed skaters or downhill skaters. They mostly use longer frames with bigger wheels, and this combination allows for the maximum type of stability that there is. Take note of this and select the frames that actually fit your needs. Considering what you've learned so far about inline skates, the type of boots that we have, the frames, the properties of the wheels, and the advantages and disadvantages of the type of wheels and frames that we have, and so on. Now it is your decision to select the different combinations that gives you the perfect skate to go for the mission that you want to accomplish. So if, for example, want to go into aggressive skating, then it's advisable to go for smaller wheels and maybe specialized type of frames, or go for specifically aggressive skate, because this allows you to do certain tricks and all, because the materials of the frame, for example, allows a bit more compression, and this makes landing a lot more safer than normal skates, which are frames that are made of aluminum or some kind of metal and so on. If you also want to go into slalom skating, most of the time you can use any other skate, but there are also specialized skates for slalom. But the features that I've talked about so far is that for the slalom skate, you can see that they have shorter frames and smaller wheels. You want to target these two main things: shorter frames, smaller wheels. If you want to skate more on downhill skating and speed skating and all, then go for longer frames and bigger wheels, because this is way better for this type of skating. If you want to go into wizard skating, you can get specialized wizard frames, and if that's too expensive for you, because they usually are, then you can maybe just buy some normal skates and rock at them a bit. So rockering is just changing the positions of your wheels. So you want to have maybe the middle two wheels outside, a lot outside than the wheels at the front and behind. This can be done usually by using maybe a slightly bigger wheels in the middle and maybe slightly smaller wheels on the outside, if your frames do not allow rockering. There are some frames that allow rockering, so if you don't have this, then maybe the best option would be, like I said, to maybe go for slightly bigger wheels in the middle and then maybe smaller wheels or slightly smaller wheels on the outside, because this will give you this pivot that you need in order to turn a lot more smoothly. This time you're not turning on all four wheels, you'll be turning on the two main wheels. But be careful not to use this under high speed, because it can become quite dangerous. So just do this with a lot of caution. If you're like me, who likes to skate freely, going to free skate, urban skating, just do whatever I like, you can get any skates. This one, for example, is a really good choice. This is a Power Slide Storm. Power Slide is not sponsoring this video. This is my own personal experience. I've bought this skate and I actually like the skate. That is why I'm telling you about it, because this is actually a really good skate. It allows for different combinations. I can get a 4-wheel setup from this skate and also a 3-wheel setup from this skate. So it allows me to try both of them. As a beginner, you might want to try these two setups. So this skate is actually a really good option to go for. One more thing before we go: remove your heel brakes. If you have heel brakes on your skate, or if you're buying skates, buy one without heel brakes, because heel brakes are a curse. Trust me, they limit your potential a lot. They do not allow you to improve. And if you remove your heel brakes and actually learn to stop with other techniques, it makes your skating journey a lot more interesting. They are very dangerous also if you're doing something like maybe spins or turns or jumps. They become very, very dangerous. So if you want to really improve, remove your heel brakes as soon as possible. These are the most important things you need to know about your inline skates. I hope you can be able to make a decision and also understand your skates a lot better through this video. If you have any extra questions, do also leave them in the comment section below. I respond to all the comments there. Also subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and see you in the next lesson.